Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome. So let's say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 16th Annual Graphic Novel Making Contest Award Ceremony. Woo! My name is Jill Bourne, and I have a very cool job of being city librarian. Awesome. So let's say good afternoon, everyone. Which means I'm the welcome to the 16th Annual Graphic Novel Making Contest Award Ceremony. Woo! I have a superpower, apparently. My name is Jill Bourne, and I have a very cool job of being city librarian. Awesome. And I am thrilled to once again have the honor of being the MC for the grand event as we celebrate another year of our graphic novel making contest in a new location in our beautiful City Hall Rotunda and Council chambers. This contest is meant to inspire artists of all ages to get creative over the summer by developing their very own graphic novel for a chance to win amazing prizes and the opportunity to have their creations published. We're all here today to recognize and celebrate all of the creators who entered the contest this year. It's always so amazing to see the wide range of talent that we attract for this program. This year, we received a total of 196 entries in 5 different age categories. And we're here today to announce the winners in each of the age categories. Entries were judged on content and illustration by a panel of industry professionals, community art members, and also library staff. The winning entries have already been published and will be made available for checkout in our library system. All the participants in attendance today will get a copy of this year's winning entries, and all the winners have been, after all the winners have been announced. Lastly, we'll also be making a digital collection available of all the submissions through sjpl.org. So with the San Jose Public Library card, you can view the comic submission and all the contest entries in the digital collection, which will be available as of Tuesday, September 10th. So feel free to tell all your friends and family that you are now a published author at the San Jose Public Library. So before we move on, I just want to recognize and thank our sponsors who have supported this contest in a variety of ways. This year, we received several generous donations and resulted in thousands of books and items for our contest participants and winners. From providing amazing prizes, art supplies, supporting programs, and helping judge contest entries, we could not have done it without you. We'd like to give a big thank you to the San Jose Public Library Foundation, the San Jose Museum of Art, Sakura of America, which is one of our longtime supporters, sponsoring the contest now for 11 years, the National Consortium of Teachers About Age, Scarfff Comic Newspapers, Storm King Comics, Clover Press, MAGWest, FanimeCon, and Maya Kern. Thank you all to the sponsors. And along with our sponsors, I want to give special thanks to all the individuals for their ongoing support to the graphic novel making contest and their assistance as volunteer community judges. I want to thank and recognize our dedicated staff who have helped make the contest a huge success, including our graphic novel making contest committee, who you'll see several of them wandering around helping out during the program, the San Jose Public Library marketing team, who you'll see with cameras and things like that, and the Summer Learning Committee. Let's thank the staff. So today we have the pleasure of being joined by a group of talented artists and guest speakers, Eddie Ahn, Lucie Roberts, Becky MacDonald, and Sara Alfageeh. Each of these speakers, oh yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Each of our speakers will share their personal experiences working in comics and animation and provide inspiring messages for all of our participants. And at the end of the ceremony, everyone will have the opportunity to meet our speakers and purchase a copy of their books at the Elusive Comics table in the Rotunda. Okay, so one more little bit of business before we announce our first group of winners. As you entered, all contest participants should have checked in and received a participation packet. The packet is your golden ticket. The packet includes a special feedback about your entry written by the judges themselves, a certificate of participation, a checklist to pick up your participation prizes, one free pass to the San Jose Museum of Art. And this museum offers free admission for children and teens under age 17. So if you entered the contest and you're under 17, the grown-up accompanying you can utilize your free pass. So this is a wonderful local museum if you haven't been. It also offers free admission to teachers, students, and youth with a valid school ID year-round. Along with your museum pass, all participants of the graphic novel making contest and cosplay on display will receive one free graphic novel or cosplay book of their choice, courtesy of our library summer learning committee, and a graphic novel making contest tote bag. If you have not yet picked up your free book, bring your participation envelope to the prize table in the lobby, which is in the rotunda, and so you can claim your prize while supplies last. Other freebies include single issue comics from Storm King Comics, posters, and stickers. Also, several randomly selected packets include a special prize label on their participation envelope. Extra prize blind bundles can be claimed until 5 p.m. in the rotunda from the extra prize table. Okay, that's all the business. Now I have one more exciting piece of news. As of this July, the San Jose Public Library has officially gone fines free, which means that you no longer have to worry about overdue fines when you return your books, even if it's a little bit late, starting on July 1st. You still have to return your books. Okay. But if you return them late, you will not have to pay a fine. And that is thanks to our San Jose City Council that usually sits in this chambers. And so we're very excited about this. To celebrate it, we are inviting you to join us in a fun way, which is to say goodbye to fines with a crowd wave. And our wonderful marketing team is going to film this, and then you'll see it all over the world. So here's how, does everybody know how to do the wave? Like you go to the Giants games and you stand up like that, right? Okay, great. So we're gonna start on this side. We're gonna do a practice. We're gonna start on this side and we're gonna go across and you're gonna have a staff member. So see Alyssa with the red. Alyssa is gonna be your start waiver. And then you wanna, I'm a little bit slow today, so. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Is that good? That was awesome. Thank you, guys. We don't usually make people do that. Thank you all so much. So now, without further ado, it is time to announce this year's graphic novel making contest winners. If your name is announced, please come down to the stage here to pick up your award certificate. We'll take a brief photo. And then you're going to remain over here to the left so that we can take a picture of all the winners in the category. And then you'll be able to claim your full prize packet at the check-in table in the rotunda after the ceremony. So we're going to start with the adult winners. First is honorable mention goes to Ryan Morrison for their entry titled Immortal Interlude. Ryan. Right here. Okay, next, third place goes to Elise Fan for her entry titled Songstellation. Here- Okay, great. Second place goes to Natalie Maria Walter for her title, the title, My Advice as a High School Grad. Sorry. Okay, and first place in the adult category goes to Anna Tao Wen for the entry titled Dog Star. Anna is making her way down. Yay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. A little more logistics here in the chambers. So thanks to all who entered in the adult category, and congratulations again to all the winners. After the event, just to note that we are going to take a picture of all the winners together. So stick around until the end of the awards. Before announcing our next group of winners, I'm so excited to welcome our first speaker to the stage. Eddie H. On is a nonprofit attorney and executive director of Bright Line Defense, a San Francisco-based environmental justice nonprofit. In 2021, Eddie was inducted into the state of California's Clean Energy Hall of Fame for his work in equity and clean energy. In addition to his nonprofit work and government commissions, he is a self-taught artist who has been recognized as a cartoonist in residence by the Charles M. Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa. Advocate is his debut graphic memoir detailing his story of family, community, and the fight for environmental justice. He also enjoys eating dumplings. So do I. So help me welcome Eddie On.
I'm going to set a timer to make sure I can stay on schedule as well. Good afternoon, everybody. Eddie On again, and it's such a pleasure to be able to speak before you today. My background sounds crazy, you know, if you just kind of look at it from outside glance, but I hope by the end of this presentation, you'll understand why I chose comics as a medium to try to tell my own story and also try to explain why I do what I do for a living. So my core job has always been someone who's trained originally as a lawyer. I went to UC College of Law, San Francisco, formerly known as Hastings in San Francisco. And my day-to-day life, I actually still work as a nonprofit executive director, which essentially means I lead a nonprofit organization and I manage staff to try to push forward environmental justice pieces. So environmental justice is often that intersection of the environment, economy, identity issues. It's often looking at the environment, not just from, say, a nature conservation angle, but often looking at how communities interact with the environment to begin with. So that's been, the kind of arc of my professional career since 2009, since graduating from law school. But also on the side, I've worked as a self-taught artist. So I've been drawing since childhood. I've been working my way steadily up through comic strips. So this is like some of my original work after college, even about a talking turtle, for instance, trying to sell coffee in San Francisco. So that was like one story I told. Another was more intended for elementary students. It was a series of wishes, changing the world. So in the science fiction genre. But then in 2015 to 2016, I started illustrating pages about my own life. So trying to tell, again, this story of family, community, and the environment, and trying to essentially explain what I've tried to do since the end of law school. And you can start to see, even the cover represented how those images of family have come through over time. So these comics started getting published on Instagram. I didn't even publish them for about 4 or 5 years until February 2020. And then it got picked up by Penguin Random House in about 2023. And it's just out now in April 2024. And I've been on book tour talking about the book and, again, the general arc of what I do. But part of this story is ultimately based on generations. The beginning pages of the book even talk about my grandfather, how he himself was a translator, essentially a translator between different cultures, the South Korean armies and US armies in particular, during the Korean War. And he himself, got married, as you can see, to my grandmother at the end of 1953. The unique part of this photo is you can even see US soldiers in the top left corner and a bunch of relatives surrounding them. And in the bottom right is a picture of myself with my own grandfather during my college days. And part of it was also understanding that immigration arc originally from South Korea, where he was, eventually had his family and then built it out. And then my parents, once they were educated in Korea in college, they came to Texas to go to the University of Texas for graduate school. My mother was going to become a pharmacist, my dad an electrical engineer. They ended up doing liquor stores instead in the state of Texas. So that's why you can see myself as a child, next to cases of Miller Lite. And then you can also see my family's liquor store. It's not, I have to emphasize, not that impressive looking goody liquor lettering at the top. It's the much smaller CBS lettering in the bottom left corner, right next to the goody liquor store. So in many ways, my family's immigration history was always one of an underdog story, trying to make it against much bigger, better competitors and partly trying to survive in a much bigger world. But their aspirations for me were always, let's take what we made in that liquor store and invest it in my own education, which is why you can see me even studying at the cash register. And this is a slide I usually pause to even explain why comics to begin with, why tell comics, why tell one's own life story through comics. Some of the aspects I try to use in my own graphic memoir, I like to think are unique to the medium. So if you look at the way I use color, for instance, you can see those childhood photos in bottom, thematically themed red, hopefully to indicate the passions of youth. And it tells essentially a time period in which I, thought about my life in tones of red. Then during college, essentially my green, naive maybe years, you can start to see myself. I went to Brown in University of University Brown in Rhode Island. And then it was essentially based out of that small state for about 4 years. And then I came out to California. This was way back now in 2005, where you can start to see the hues, the different kind of time periods and different themes of my life represented through different colors. Purple, a transitional state, orange and brown for the wildfires and pandemic times, also representing periods of work in my nonprofit. Finally, today is blue, hopefully a calmer state of mind in which I'm in. But part of it is also understanding like why even nonprofit service to begin with. Part of what I've thought through is like my first job out of college was actually working as an AmeriCorps volunteer, teaching elementary students arts, public speaking. So it was after school programming. And I essentially brought in a lot of UC Berkeley students to Oakland, Chinatown. And you can start to see, kind of recollections in the graphic memoir itself of that time, what it meant to even be an educator in the space. And in the bottom right, I was going through a conflict. Like, do I go on, carry this work to become a public school teacher? Or do I try to go get my law degree and become a lawyer instead? Part of what's always shaped me is, and what's also explored in the book is in essence, a conflict with my parents and their expectations for what my career should have been. So in this slide, you can start to see myself describe, that nonprofit work and, the AmeriCorps volunteer service that I was doing. I was trying to describe that work with Oakland Chinatown students, saying a lot of these families, their parents are service workers, they work late at night. The entire family makes less than $20,000 a year. So in many ways, this after-school program is really the best education the children of these immigrant families can get. I always hoped my parents would understand that. You can start to see my mom listening to all these aspects. And then by the bottom panel, she says, but how much do you get paid at the end of it? And part of the challenge was it was always quite literally a circular conversation, which again, it shows like the strength of comics as a medium, the ability to move that story in literal physical ways that you couldn't otherwise in just prose itself. And then the other thought is like the motif of bottles, which I returned to. I tried to approach this memoir from a place of feeling and empathy for my own parents too, and then understanding their own worldview that, it was based on transactions at the end of the day, in some ways quite literally, for instance, through a liquor store, buy for $1, sell for $2. It's not necessarily a bad worldview, but it was always very different from my own aspirations. And for them, their aspirations were quite literally economic at the end of the day. They came to the US for good economic opportunities. And then they wanted those aspirations to translate onto me directly. So you can start to see in the left-hand side of the page, tones of yellow, which are kind of meant to be aspirational for myself to work as your typical big firm lawyer, and then go on to acquire property, maybe a condo in the city of San Francisco. And then ultimately at the end of it all, buy my parents a Mercedes-Benz, nice car. The point of all this was not to obviously get them a Mercedes-Benz, but to appreciate them. The gesture itself was the meaning of it all. And then what I also did was quite literally represented through, for instance, a freebie my dad would get at the liquor store, which was a hot air balloon ride. He would get a number of these things, like a free trip to, a Napa vineyard. For him, like in some ways, like this represented economic ascent to him and mobility in American society. But that's not what I chose after law school, much to their disappointment. I became the worst kind of lawyer that they could probably imagine, the broke kind of lawyer. But part of it was they didn't understand this community aspect of what I was doing, which was at the time working in San Francisco, particularly in Bayview Hunters Point here. For instance, is represented Dr. Espanola Jackson, who was a longtime civil rights leader who worked in that neighborhood, the southeast sector of the city, working on things like shutting down a peaker power plant or advocating for local hiring, local jobs for her community. And part of my nonprofit work, even in those early days as a recently graduated law student, was essentially mentorship by this icon of the civil rights movement, of environmental justice, learning how to shape myself as an advocate for communities. And then, ultimately my maturity really came in the last few years, where some of the worst times for the nonprofit happened. On the left-hand side, you start to see some of the days of the wildfires where my nonprofit started citing air quality sensors, particularly trying to get data to low-income communities to let them know of climate change as a condition of their neighborhoods. On the right-hand side, it also shows me quite literally installing those sensors. If you remember those really, remarkable orange skies that happened because of the wildfires at the time. And then partly it's always in the memoir, what I'm struggling with is the act of reconnecting it back to my family. And one of the things I think has been hard to communicate to my parents at the end of the day is the importance of the environment and climate change. And so in these pages, in some ways, art has been the most interesting way to naturally reconnect to them, because this happened, when my father was able to make one last trip out to the US, where he looked at these art installations that I did on the streets of San Francisco. So there are these public utility boxes where my drawings were essentially blown up and wrapped around each box. And in those bottom panels, you can literally see him grab onto the box. And I think a lot about how do we make the environment real? How do we make it something that you can feel, you can touch, you can actually understand with some kind of tangible notion of like, this is a changing environment, and what can we do to collaborate together, to work together with each other? The final pages really cover, you can start to see like the visual parallels I can draw. So if you go back earlier, to the hot air balloon page that I was talking about, part of what I wanted to do was also provide contrasts at the end of the day from my parents' own view of what my life should have been and where I am now. This is actually covering a more recent clean energy trip I was able to take on behalf of Brightline to go look at something called offshore wind. These are large wind turbines being proposed off the coast of California to essentially generate a ton of renewable energy. Part of the challenge, I think, in living in cities, even to begin with, is we don't have a strong connection to where our power comes from. Everybody just assumes it comes from an outlet in the wall, but literally there's a power plant or a solar farm or wind turbine farm that usually generates power. So a lot of my nonprofits work is trying to understand this equitably and how to connect it at the end of the day. But one of the challenges I will admit is like in the bottom right-hand panel, you can see again a panel of my father and myself trying to relate to my father about his own hot air balloon ride and connecting it to this helicopter trip that I took to go talk about offshore wind turbines. And he'll just say, I don't remember any of that. Just give me a cup of coffee. Part of the reason for that, and these last pages really cover the notion of legacy, the idea of like what it is that we do in this life and what it is that we leave behind. Part of it is with an understanding that not everything I do in life will be perfect. I think that's one of the hardest things to accept in one's own life. But part of it is hopefully it's better for the community, better for one's family. I've been really contemplating this, not just in creating my own graphic memoir, but going through pages, for instance, of my grandfather's memoir and looking at his own, pages that he wrote right before he died. And it's essentially 12 handwritten pages from top to bottom about his time during the Korean War, how he tried to build his family accordingly, and where he left his family at. And my father himself, one of the sadder moments in the graphic memoir is he's suffering a lot from dementia. And part of it is like, even as you lose those memories, it's very challenging, even when we're at full health, to retain all the information we want. But thinking through when your own health is failing, what do you leave for those around you? So part of it is like thinking through these storytelling mechanics, using storytelling as a vehicle to tell these themes of family, community, the environment. And to go back to the title advocate, it's a lot about being an advocate for those things, for not just all the kind of general things you would hope for in life, but also kind of more subtly for oneself, trying to advocate for yourself and to hopefully make the world a better place as soon as you've finished your own life. So with that, I really appreciate your attention. And yeah, it's again, an honor to be here.
Okay, we're gonna have, thank you to Eddie On. I want to, if you haven't seen his book Advocate, it's a really beautiful example of how the graphic novel format can be used to tell such personal stories and and a memoir biography. And so if you haven't seen it, check it out. I think we're gonna have some at the table. I'm excited to get my own copy. That was like the fastest tech switch, however. Thank you, lady. Thank you. And let's hear it again for Eddie On. Okay, so it's now time to announce our winners in the teen category. Teen winners, if your name is announced, please come up to the stage to pick up your certificate and we'll take a brief photo. And then you're gonna hang out here again and we'll take a group photo at the end. So the first honorable mention goes to Abhiram Vaishnavi Iranti for the title entry called What If All Wishes Could Come True? Abhiram and Vaishnavi. All right, second honorable mention goes to Tam Tan No for the differences between you and me. Take your time. Okay, so third place goes to Emma Yen for the entry titled The Changing of Our Seasons. Emma might not be in the building. Okay. We're going to go on to second place is Sophia Liu for the entry titled Dear Brother. Dear Brother. Sophia, she might still be out with the stormtroopers. And first place goes to Luna Yang for the entry titled Amy's Library. Our teens are all missing. Okay, well, we will make sure that they get their awards and we're gonna do a quick photo right here. All right. Thank you to all who entered the teen category and congratulations to our winners. Again, please stay after for the group photo. And now I'm super excited to announce our next guest speakers, Lucie Roberts and Becky MacDonald. Lucie and Becky are twin sisters with a passion for animation and storytelling. With over a decade of experience in the gaming industry and contributions to Oscar-nominated films like The Dam Keeper, which they worked on as student interns, and opera, which they have played key roles in crafting compelling narratives through animation. Their careers began at Pixel Opus, where they spent nearly a decade working on projects like Entwined and Concrete Genie. Lucie recently served as the sole animator at Tekla Inc., while Becky is now a concept artist at Akili Interactive and Magic Soup Games. They have contributed to various stages of production, from storyboarding to gameplay to cinematics, but above all, they love the art of animation, games, and comics. Let's welcome Lucie Roberts and Becky MacDonald. Woo!
Hi, everyone. We're not big public speakers, so you'll have to bear with us. We're so humbled. All the artwork today has been amazing. That last presentation was so beautiful.
It was so good.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see all the work today.
And
Great
it-
job. Yeah, great job, everybody. You know how hard it is to start a project and then also finishing a project is like such an accomplishment. Yeah. It's also so amazing to be here at San Jose City Hall. We are San Jose natives, you know. What's wrong? The clicker. Oh, the clicker. Oh, here it is. We're also twin sisters, and we spent a lot of our careers working like a desk apart from each other. We went through all of school together. We got our first jobs together. Yeah, so now we're speaking together.
Yeah.
It's a big weight off to be up here together. Yeah. Like you, we share a love of comics and manga and graphic novels. But instead of working in the comics industry, we have spent most of our time in the games industry. Let's see. On screen are some of the studios we have worked with over the years. So in the center, you'll see Pixel Opus, which is where we spent a majority of our careers. It's located in San Mateo, so it's not too far away. Let's see. Our team's mission at Pixel Opus was to make games that have heart. And we've worked a few places since then, but I feel like we both take that mission with us to our new studios too. We're always trying to make games and films that have heart. Yeah, if we're working at a studio that doesn't have that goal, I think we're not happy.
Yeah.
We need to find something new. But we started out like many of you, drawing and illustrating the stories that we love and want to tell. We're here to show you that there's no telling where an interest in art and storytelling will take you. And when we use the word artist, we mean writers too, because there might be some folk out there who wrote and didn't illustrate the comics, and we hope we're speaking to your language too. So we grew up watching a lot of cartoons. So this is basically us watching TV, watching Nickelodeon. Our parents were very excited to buy us like any VHS animated film that we that we wanted. We especially loved Disney films growing up because we grew up during a height in animation during the Disney Renaissance. But we also loved cartoons like Powerpuff Girls and Vader Zim and of course The Simpsons. We were soaking everything in that we were seeing, and those stories and those shows and everything had a big effect on us. I remember when I was really young and watching The Lion King and seeing a scene when the wind blows and like all the little blades of grass blew across the screen. And I was old enough to know that someone like drew all those blades of grass. And I was kind of awestruck at the amount of work and care and detail in that. And yeah, it just kind of blew my mind. And I wondered how a person could draw that. And then as we got older, we got access to more varied forms of animation, and we fell in love with anime as well. Things like the Hayao Miyazaki movies and Akira and Sailor Moon and Neon Genesis. Nowadays it's amazing, like everyone has access to everything, but for us it was like a gradual like introduction. Yeah, the first time we saw Princess Mononoke, and we started watching it a lot. We'd watch Princess Mononoke over and over again. And that movie had such a big effect on us, and just seeing the depth and possibilities of the medium. And that around that time is when I remember starting to say to people, I want to be an animator. That's when I started saying that aloud to myself and the people around me, but I had no idea how to get on that path to become an animator. And then, of course, there's an interest in games because we did become game developers. I think some of the first art and the first fan art I ever drew was from The Legend of Zelda. I would just draw Link and little fairy and all of that. Yeah, I remember sitting in school and just like wanting to get home to continue Ocarina of Time and just get a little farther. Yeah, just being so anxious to get out of school to get back to that. I know, I think that was what for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, that was one of the first times I was so like immersed in a game. You know, you just feel like you're the character and you're exploring the world. It takes the storytelling to a whole new level. And of course, reading like the worlds of sci-fi and fantasy books had a huge impact on us. We loved reading like the stories, and then we would go to our sketchbooks and like recreate all the scenes we were reading about. Yeah, probably some of the most impactful stories in our lives were things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, The Sandman, Akira, Nazca. But what do all these things have in common? What does, you know, The Simpsons have in common with Lord of the Rings, have in common with Disney? All those things are just, they do have something in common. They're all rooted in a love of characters and stories and imagination, and they all reach their audience in different ways, but they're all communicating in the same way. Okay, so this slide are some of, I think, yeah, well, these are the drawings. We went through a lot of our old drawings from when we were kids, like, so starting out from when we were children all the way up to teenagers. And you could see our interests change over the years. And it's the things that we were interested in reading and watching and games we were playing. Yeah. The things that you love to watch and read and play and experience have become part of you and your personal style. And yeah, so you don't ever have to worry about your own style because everything you love is becoming part of that. Yeah, and if any of you go home and dig through your old drawings, everything that your parents have saved over the years, you'll see that same growth. So even looking at my stuff's on the top and Becky's is on the bottom. It's kind of hard to see, but Jess got us the computer, so I'll stop turning around. So like an interest in animals like cats turns into an interest in Zelda, and then Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. So yeah, we thought it'd be good to show you guys where your art could start out. You also get so much practice just by copying things that you enjoy and you love to draw. You have to get a lot of bad drawing out of the way before you have some good ones. Looking through our old work it was hard picking ones out that we would show today. Oh my gosh, I found my old Deviant art online. And there's so much cringy artwork on there. I had to really pick and choose. So we decided, I think both of us decided to pursue art as our careers, but we didn't know exactly how to do that. But in high school, we were part of the art club. We went to Lincoln High School. I don't know if any of you go to Lincoln, but it's in San Jose. It's in the upper left corner there. And then we went to San Jose State University. Yeah, I think as we were growing as artists, we focused a lot on painting in the early days and like a fine arts education. Yeah. On our way to learning how to animate. And then our first chance animating was at a school a vocational school in South San Jose called CCFC, where yeah, we had an amazing time, made a lot of friends, and like made a lot of really badly done animation. And then after high school, we went to San Jose State. Our family doesn't have like a ton of money to send us to like a fancy private school like Cal Arts or Otis or something like that. But we were really lucky, and we found out that you know, a block that way, there's like a great animation program. Flipped backward. Oh, oops, sorry. When you get an art education, it helps you try things you might not try on your own. Sometimes you learn new tools or software you might have been trying to avoid. I remember when we started in the industry, or when we started learning animation, it was kind of shifting to a lot of 3D stuff, and a lot of artists were resistant to that. But in the end, like, we really like working that way now in 3D. So it's kind of good to get out of your comfort level when you're learning how to do your art too. Okay. Here are some images of some of the short films we worked on at San Jose State. We worked on a lot of them. A thing about the program there is you sort of, over the summer break and winter holidays, you work on short films with your friends. And it's a really good experience learning how to work with other people. Yeah, that's one of the most valuable things about doing student films with people, is just learning how to communicate with each other and work together. And I know some of the winners of the contests worked as teams. And working with someone else to create something bigger, it's like the most amazing feeling. And what you create is extra special, because when you look back on that project, it's not just the project you see, it's the people who were with you making it. And so I do think that's an extra special thing about group projects, like films and collaborative graphic novels. Let's see. So this was our first internship together. Some of our classmates were working on a project, and they needed animators on that project, and they recommended us. And so we got to work on The Dam Keeper. The directors there were taking a break from Pixar to make their passion project. And so it was amazing being able to join them up there, like across the street from Pixar, animating with them and painting still lives with them. And then a few years later, we worked with them again on a short film called Opera, which is more like a gallery kind of piece animation, but they were both nominated for Oscars, amazingly. These guys are so talented. Yeah, and they should have won. Yeah. Okay, and a little later, we got the call to interview at a small game team at PlayStation called Pixel Opus. Actually, it wasn't even called Pixel Opus yet. It was like before it was even fully fledged studio. We couldn't believe our luck to get the job, and it was our first time working on a video game, and it was a very inspiring experience. Yeah, when you make art, of course, making it itself is really enjoyable, but when you hand it over to someone else to read or watch, or like with a video game, when they're actually holding a controller in their hands and playing it, it's like a great feeling. And yeah, it was really different from what we were doing in school, but we loved it a lot. I remember my first day at Pixel Opus, the art director came in and he asked me to storyboard the intro to our yet to be named game. It was a game about a bird and a fish who were in love and could not be together. It was very abstract too. You could see some animation from it playing in the center, but it was very intimidating. I don't know, when you start like a new job, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. And I considered myself an animator at the time and not a storyboarder, but the training I had, the background in drawing and narrative storytelling prepared me. And so I just jumped in and tried storyboarding, and they really liked it. And then 9 months later, we were sitting at E3, the games conference, and there's our cinematic playing on this huge screen that wrapped around the whole theater, and like a live stream that like gamers everywhere could watch. And it's like the craziest feeling. And it just shows you where you don't know where your passion in art and storytelling will take you. Yeah. From a process standpoint, making games is pretty similar to an animated film. The biggest difference is that you're working with a lot more like programmers and designers, and a lot of times the importance is on the feeling of the playing more than like how it looks. And you can see in the lower right there, it's a very small image, but those were my storyboards for that cinematic for the intro. So it's all connected. You know, the sequential art of graphic novel and storyboarding and animation, it's all very connected. Our second project at PlayStation was Concrete Genie, a story about a boy from a polluted town who brings the world back to life with his magic paintbrush. We got to do a lot of storytelling on this project. It was a larger game with a larger story. We got to do storyboard drawings, work with a writer, animate cinematics, film the cinematics in the engine, and we even worked with the voice actors. That game was a lot of work, and it was a fun ride, but it was also a pretty challenging. And that's also probably one of the reasons we remember it so fondly. Sometimes the hardest things you do, like create the best memories and really good friendships too. Okay, so we were gonna go over a little bit of the process of making a video game. So where do you start when you want to make a video game, or the visuals for it anyway? Yeah, and it's the same process that you would go through sort of for comics. So really you start with research and inspiration. So this is some of the reference we gathered when making Concrete Genie, like a very small amount of the reference. Like we have folders and folders of reference from the start of that project. And so you gather reference to get mood, to get character ideas for setting, or maybe just for anatomy on how to, you know, what should the characters look like? And a lot of the time early on in the project, you can like pitch your game ideas to the rest of the team just with reference, just to get as many ideas on the table for people to consider in the early days. And then you just start drawing. And this part of the process is really exciting, especially like on a mid-sized art team. Everyone goes away to their desks and you know, starts generating artwork for the world or the characters, and then at the end of the day or the week or however long you have, you come together and see what world what it's turning into. At the same time, like the artists are working really rough, the engineers and the designers are also working really rough and just making really fast prototypes just to get everyone trying stuff out and envisioning the possibilities. And then once you have a bunch of drawings and a bunch of ideas, you simplify. And I love these drawings here. Becky did these ones. It's our main cast of characters. We had six real human characters in the game. And what she did is she took the characters we already had, they were already modeled in the game, and she sort of simplified them down to their basic shapes. And I really like these drawings because I could tell just from the lineup which one the hero character is. It's just because of his nice, simple pose and heroic pose. Yeah. When you're working on a game, you often have to like go through revisions and passes of the character. So this was at a point in the game when we needed a refresh too. And then after you simplify, you go back into details. You could everything from like turnarounds of the characters to really close up on the props and the like deciding what fabric stuff is made out of, or if you're showing stitching or metal, or just how much detail and where do you want it. In a video game, the character is, well, it was like a third person game, so the character is facing away from you a lot of the time. So we really had to design everything on his back. And Lucie had a lot of fun designing this backpack that he wore. Like, and then like as the game goes on, you're like earning patches that start covering that prop. So, and in comics, this is true as well. Like, how simple do you want your character to look versus how complicated? Is there a lot of pattern? Is there a lot of color? how much do you want happening on the screen or on the page at the same time, you know? And that's just part of the style you develop by sketching and looking at your reference and inspiration. And then also at this point, to pull from your reference, you want to pull like backstory details into your characters. Our main character was a painter, so he's like covered up in paint splotches, and you know, everything he has is sort of like janky, like, because I could remember as an art student always like having paint everywhere and like a graphite. And for a long time in our game, the character would mix paint on his hands, so he has like the most detailed like palms of like any video game. Yeah, and then we dropped that, and then it doesn't need that anymore by the end of it. But you could see how detailed his hands got. And then in the center, you could see the bikes that some of the kids in the game rode around, and all of those had to represent that character as well. So like, how did they modify the bike, or did they add something to it, or have to fix it at some point? Because props can say a lot about the characters that own the prop. It's pretty dark, but this is what the game looks like kind of at the end. And you just keep revising and trying to make it look better and better pretty much until it comes out. Or even after it comes out in games, you could release like a patch and like fix any visual problems sometimes. You shouldn't do that, no. It should be shippable right at the start. Everyone on the team contributes part of themselves to the creative world and the world that you create. Well, I don't think Concrete Genie would have looked like this if we weren't into Harry Potter and into Zelda and Princess Mononoke. It would look completely different. And everyone on the team contributes part of that. Yeah, and our team had people from all around the world. We had British people, people from China, people from India. And so everyone's backgrounds kind of, we had a lot of Bay Area people. A lot of Bay Area people too, but it all gets infused into the game or the finished product. So at the end of our slideshow, we wanted to leave you with something inspirational. So an inspirational quote. I'll read one of them. We put too many quotes up there. We couldn't hold back. One of them by Walt Disney. It's about storytelling. That's what we storytellers do. We restore order with imagination. We instill hope again and again and again. And this shot from Cinderella at the bottom of the slide is by Mark Davis, and it was Walt Disney's favorite bit of animation for many of his movies. Sequential art like this, or like in games or graphic novel, are like magic. With this magic, you could show people what's going on inside of your head, inside of your heart. So, yeah, telling stories is one of the oldest and most important jobs in the world. So, to all the parents out there and caregivers, thanks for supporting your kids on this journey to tell stories. And we're ending with this quote by Howard Pyle, who is the founder of all of this. I don't think any of us would be sitting here without Howard Pyle. He's the founder of the illustration style. Throw your heart into a picture and jump in after it. Yeah, I promise you, if you do this, whatever it is you are making, you will be proud of it. And they say all children are artists, but most people stop at some point on their way to growing up. So just try not to stop. And we want to thank you for having us here. And we hope you will continue your journey to become dreamers and thinkers and storytellers. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lucie Roberts and Becky MacDonald. And so I think this might be the first time we've had artists who showed how to take your art and move it into a different medium into the video game world, which I know, like, do a lot of people here play video games? Anybody plays video games? So now you can tell your parents that playing video games will lead to an awesome job. So yeah. So thanks again to our authors for being here, our artists, sorry. And we're going to continue to celebrate more of our participants. by announcing the winners in the preteen, which is ages 10 to 12 category. Winners, again, when you come up, we're gonna, oh my goodness, we're gonna take a quick picture, then you're gonna hang out over here, and then you'll be able to claim your full prize in the rotunda later. The first honorable mention is Amelie Charlotte Roberson for the title Lies. Amelie. Oh, Amelie. She snuck up on me. The second honorable mention goes to George Liu for his entry titled The Perplexing Life of a Platypus. George, okay. Congrats, George. Third place will go to Audrielle Walter for the entry titled Duct Tape. Okay, second place goes to Bella Chang for the entry titled One Last Time. Bella. Congrats, Bella. And we'll move on to first place is for Oliver Yao for the entry titled The Seafood Olympics. Awesome. Thank you again to everyone who entered, and congratulations to our preteen winners. So before announcing our last two groups of winners, we do have one final speaker, Sara Alfageeh. Sara is a Jordanian American illustrator and creative director in San Francisco. She's passionate about history, teaching, girls with swords, and spaces where art and identity intersect. Her client list includes Marvel, Star Wars, Google, Nickelodeon, and even Hank Green. She co-authored and illustrated the graphic novel Squire, which won multiple achievements, including the Harvey Award for Best Children's or Young Adult Book. Her debut picture book, Not Yet, The Story of an Unlikely Skater, was released earlier this year. Sara is currently co-founder and art director of One More Multiverse, an upcoming PC and mobile platform to make RPGs and tabletop games inclusive and accessible. This year, she was placed on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list for games. Please give a warm welcome to Sara Alfageeh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Say it back. Wake up. I know it's been a warm, toasty evening here in this hall, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I have been drawing for about 10 years, so I just want you to know that if you're in this room, you're already running laps around me. Today, we're going to be talking about being bad artists. I am a bad artist. Tomorrow, I hope to continue being a bad artist. And I hope to convince you as well today to also be a bad artist. And we're going to talk about what that means. So as mentioned before, I work in games, I work in comic books, I make children's books as well. Art and writing has been my job since I was 19, and it very well likely will be many of your jobs as well. And even if it isn't, I hope you keep your love of storytelling, of writing and art for as long as your little heart desires. So I started drawing at 17, began working as a professional artist by 19, and I definitely didn't enter any art competitions until I was 20. So if you're in this room, really, really feel proud about the fact that you're here and that you finished a project on your own that is truly like leagues ahead of a lot of kids who could only dream of creating something, because so often we don't even know that this stuff is a job. I definitely didn't. I didn't meet a professional author or illustrator until I was in college. And the second I did, I immediately realized I knew what I wanted to do. This clicker moves pretty fast. So when I started drawing, everything I picked up, it was my first time using it. And I didn't really realize that this was going to be a reoccurring theme throughout my entire career. I pride myself in trying things for the very first time and pushing myself to finish it, just to see it through. And it's really scary every single time I do it. And for some reason, it doesn't get any easier. But I'm kind of obsessed with that. I'm kind of a horror enthusiast. When something scares me, I want to tackle it head on. Here you'll see the very first pieces that I ever finished when I decided I wanted to teach myself how to draw, because I was really bad in math class, even though I was in the front row. And you know, if I wasn't going to understand calculus, at least I was going to understand how to draw hands. So I got to work. I got a D- in math, but you know, here I am now, so I'm okay. So here you'll see my very first attempt at using charcoal. I didn't even know that was something people could draw with. I was horrified by using watercolor. I didn't understand what you meant by not painting certain areas. It was my first stab at trying digital, and I never touched a pen again. It was my first time drawing animals, drawing faces, drawing hands. They're still difficult. But every time I figured out something new, I was obsessed with that feeling of, oh, I conquered the scary thing. And I hope that you guys today are convinced to do the scary thing as well. But more on that later. Let's talk a little bit about how I became a bit better at drawing. So this was when I was, about 17 years old, and this is from last year. So, you know, our technical skill has increased since then. I learned really quickly that I absolutely love fantasy illustrations. I love drawing swords. I don't know what it is about them. I think they're neat. And I also loved inserting little details of my own life into these fantastical worlds, mushing the two together in a way that really scratched my brain in a nice way. As you can see, I slipped in my cat Momo in there. No one could stop me. I'm the boss here. It's an amazing feeling to find out that there is no art police. So I took that feeling of, hey, no one can stop me, I can actually just draw whatever I want, into my first graphic novel, Squire. So as we discussed earlier, I had no idea that doing art was a job until I reached college. And the other thing that I didn't realize is that I could just make the books that I wanted to read. No one could stop me from doing that too. And that's kind of what happened with Squire. I didn't grow up reading any Arab American kids in any of the books or movies that I watched. If there was an Arab in a movie, they were probably the bad guy, they were probably a mummy, they were probably a genie of some kind. And you know, I loved Aladdin too, but I would have loved a little bit more. And so Squire really was dedicated to 10-year-old me, who was dragging, you know, Harry Potter books, Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur books, all the way to Jordan, where my dad forced us to spend our summers. There was no Disneyland. It's just you go to Jordan, you hang out with your cousins. So for me, I wanted to combine the two things that I loved, which is the culture and the background that I'm from, with all of the amazing fantasy tropes that I very excitedly devoured when I was on those trips. So for me, it was a combination of history, of anime fights, of characters who have complicated feelings and moody attitudes, and brought them together into this book that I only wish I could have handed to myself when I was 10 years old. And one of the reasons that I continue to do this work is because at least now I can hand it to another 10-year-old. Then I went off and realized, okay, well, I did the dream project, but I don't actually have to do anything twice. I realized I didn't have to just draw swords. I could also draw sparkles. And I was really hungry for that new feeling of like, okay, this is different, and different is scary. And if I do the scary thing, then I'm gonna be better at this. So let's do the scary thing. And I had a lot of fun working on this picture book that came out last year. And I worked with a really fantastic skater to illustrate her story, which I really related to, about a girl who tells her parents, her community, hey, I want to do this thing that no one's ever heard of, and I promise it'll all work out. So it's about her going up to people and saying, like, yeah, there's no Muslim skaters yet, but I could be the first. And I really related to that as someone who was doing that as an artist. So I had a lot of fun making all the faces. I had a lot of fun, doing all the poses in the mirror and taking pictures of myself doing it. I often joke that every face that I draw is my face first. And getting to work with really incredible and inspirational people like the skater herself, Zahra Lari, really opened my eyes that the magic and the fantasy that I looked for in books like, for example, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings could be found in real life as well. From there, I really started to understand, you know what, maybe I'm a storyteller, as fake as that is. Maybe it's not just about drawing all the time, but I have some writing skills. I love working with other people. And I started my video game company, One More Multiverse, with some really close friends. Video games was no longer just about playing with friends, but also creating with them as well. And it was a really incredible experience for the past 5 years to develop that and to really stretch my artist brain in ways that I never even thought was possible for me before. That led me to being on TikTok. All of a sudden, the same way that I realized I don't have to just play video games, I can make them. I'm not just watching TikToks, I'm also making them as well. And the same things that made me a half-decent author also made me a half-decent storyteller online, garnering millions of views and having a lot of fun with it. And I understood that storytelling wasn't just confined to professional jobs, but it could also be as simple as turning on my camera, talking straight into it, and connecting with hundreds of thousands of people online. No one told me that the holiday that I celebrated with maybe, 3 other kids in schools would also one day be the source of inspiration for the book that ended up in schools everywhere for me. I went from celebrating Eid, which is the holiday for Muslim people, to explaining it to kids all over the US and even internationally through one of my first books, Once Upon an Eid. I didn't even know a single author when I decided to start this career. And all of a sudden, I was working alongside 15 other Muslim women who were just like me, making this their career. And I don't even think I could have listed 15 before starting this project. Realizing that I wasn't alone in my own community as I pursued this path was huge for me. And also a little bit huge for my parents, who were watching over the bushes being like, is she figuring this out? Is this working? We don't know. I also had to realize that superheroes wasn't just something that came out of Marvel and Disney and could come out of me and people like me who ended up crossing over from being fans into being creators themselves. Amulet is a character that I was asked to create for Ms. Marvel, which was the very same comic that encouraged me to switch into art school when I was 19 years old. I had originally gone to college for psychology, which was about as real of a job to my parents as art anyways, so the switch wasn't too bad. I also realized that what I saw on TV that inspired me could be something I could contribute to as well. I was a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. And so when they hit me up to say, hey, do you want to write for Uncle Iroh? I nearly jumped through the screen. It was an absolute no-brainer. So for me to be able to work on a project like the Avatar: The Last Airbender free comic book day issue, I was really checking off a dream that I didn't know was possible. No one told me that this could even have been an option. The other thing that I didn't realize could have been an option for me was getting on the internet one day and realizing millions of people were going to be able to see my art on that one single day that I contributed to the Google Doodle. I ended up illustrating the portrait of Nutella Rashid, who is a famous cartoonist from Egypt. She brought cartooning to the entire Middle East and was the reason my parents even knew how to read. So to be able to honor that heritage and that legacy from a place that, I came from was really important to me. And it was kind of insane to be able to finally point to something that my aunts and uncles overseas even understood. They're like, she's on Google. That's great. From there, I went into filmmaking because, again, I don't know how to do anything twice, I guess. It was an insane experience to work on my first short film that ended up getting accepted into all of these film festivals and be out in the middle of the desert in LA at 5 a.m. and watch the sketches that I drew on the airplane suddenly become real and, be taken seriously by a cast of 50 people. It was an incredible experience to see those drawings come to life and realize that this is also a job. I'm kind of going through the world and, turning over every stone and every leaf, wondering, is this a paying job? Is that a paying job? And I'm surprised to find out the answer is yes. The other thing that was really surprising to me is that art wasn't just video games. It wasn't just comics or books or movies or all these things that brought me a lot of joy. It could actually be change as well. This was the Wall of Resistance that I art directed and put together with about 75 other artists back in 2016 when I was a college student myself. It went up in Harvard Square, and it was a protest piece. All of a sudden, we were making news and getting approached by media outlets where we ended up talking about these different social justice issues that were affecting our own selves, our families, and our communities. All of a sudden, art wasn't just about me sitting alone in a room, drawing and writing by myself. It was about collaborating with people who were being affected by the world around them. And it was about speaking up and advocating in a way that could be instantly understood. I had always been very powerfully impacted by stories, but I only think I realized in that moment that I too could impact somebody else. So, how do you do all of this? One, have a small amount of ADHD. Second, you do the scary thing, as we have been discussing. So, just as a show of hands, what is something that y'all are afraid of? How many people are afraid of spiders? What's the spiders? Yeah, popular pick, very popular. Afraid of the dark? We got some fear of the dark. Oh, yep, same as the spider people. They're overlapping. Fear of heights. We got some fear of heights. Ooh, all right. Y'all are pretty high up for that. I don't know if I believe you. And then finally, who's afraid of doing this thing that I'm doing? Afraid of talking in front of people? Yeah? Okay, cool. Well, let me tell you something that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of the blank page. Terrifying, horrible, don't like it. Don't even like looking at it right now. In fact, this is how I feel about it for real. So the blank page represents starting. Starting, scary. Starting is hard. It means I have nothing to show for. All the work's ahead of me. I don't like it, don't like looking at it. But we all have to do it. And what's pretty cool is as I'm talking about my biggest fear, I know that majority of you guys in the room have literally already defeated the blank page monster, and you should feel pride in that as well. So how do you defeat the blank page monster? And how do you do it multiple times? Because if you're going to do anything with art, with any creative path, you have to be able to overcome this. Step one, feed the monster. Feed the monster by ink, lines, color, ideas, anything you got. It's not picky, unlike, some of your siblings, some of your parents. He doesn't just eat chicken nuggets, he eats everything. So you don't want to be too careful about what you're feeding the blank page. It could be just a quick sketch, a little doodle, just a little idea. The point is to start. Starting is the most important thing you can do for any kind of creative path. So as an example, I started by just trying and trying with materials I've never used before, trying with stuff I liked, I didn't like. The point is I sat down, I began, and I didn't leave until I felt like it was done. This clicker is frustrating. Step 2, never be bored. The blank page can smell fear and can smell boredom. It will still be there if you are bored and you're not finishing any of your work. So why did I do this illustration? It's because I wanted to. And why did I do this illustration? Because I wanted to. And why did I do this illustration? Because exactly. And that's all you have to do. The greatest lesson I learned as an artist is my boredom is my problem. So if I want to have a fun job, I have to make it fun for myself. And part of that is going out into the world and finding out what the heck I even like. So I go to the movies and I'm like, ooh, that's a cool idea. Let me steal that. I read a book. Ooh, that's a cool line. Let me borrow that. Your friend says something funny, be like, that's something a character is going to say now. And you pull and you pull and you pull. And so that way, when you sit down and you face the blank page monster, you have all the stuff you need. Step 3, we're going to bring it back to the beginning. The best way to defeat the blank page monster is to be a bad artist. And let's talk about what that means. So, of course, when you say bad artist, that means there must be good artists. Why would I choose to be a bad artist when I can be a good artist? That doesn't make sense, Sara. Well, you have to be a bad artist because you just have to be an artist. All of our drawings, whether we started drawing today or we started drawing 10 years ago, they all look like this at the start. There's no difference when you begin with the blank page monster. So a good artist is just someone who has been a bad artist a million times. And so you defeat the blank page monster every day by making a million mistakes, hopefully, over the course of your lifetime, and you look forward to making those mistakes. Because every day you start as a bad artist, you will end every day as a great artist. And that's why I hope that you guys step forward today and tomorrow, maybe the day after that as well, being a bad artist right alongside me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sara. So young and so wise. I'm not sure what my favorite quote was, but maybe I will use it at work to say your boredom is your problem. But thank you again. Let's hear it for Sara Alfageeh. Okay, I know it's a little warm, so we're going to move along with announcing the winners of our children's category, ages 9 and 10. So winners, again, please come down here and we'll take a quick photo. For first honorable mention goes to Ruana Leah Paul for the entry titled Life of Vincent, a haiku comic. Ruana. All right. Second honorable mention goes to Sasha Arone for the entry titled Chili's Adventure, Friends Around the World. Okay, wonderful. Now we're going to move on to third place goes to Harnoor Kaur for the entry titled The Rescue in Popcorn World. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to move on to second place. Goes to Vivi Milan for the entry titled Algae Brothers, Algae Bros. Algae Bros. Vivi, you can tell me how to pronounce it correctly. Okay, congratulations, Vivi. And first place goes to Claire Lynn Choi for the entry titled Ice Cream. All right, let's hear it for all of our children's winners. Okay, so before we move on to our last age group, we want to feature a program we launched last year, just a quick video, Cosplay on Display. This program celebrates the creative ingenuity that is cosplay, short for costume play, in our community. California residents can submit photos of their cosplay while holding a San Jose Public Library card to be featured here at our ceremony today in our digital collection on Biblio boards. So check it out to see a variety of creative costumes. And here are this year's submissions. All right. Thanks again to all of our creative cosplays. We can't wait to see the creations that you come up with next year. And with that, it's time to announce our youngest category of winners, children ages 7 and under. So first honorable mention goes to Diego Portillo for the entry titled Haste Rogdorf and the Witches Attack. Diego. Okay, congratulations to Diego. We're going to move on to second honorable mention goes to Hannah Lowe for the entry titled Where is the Dot? Is that Diego? Is this Diego? Yay! Here we go. I did wonder if somebody was getting a snack. Okay, third place goes to Dave Peter Sean for the entry titled The Alien Planet. Dave, okay. We're going to go to second place, which goes to Anaya 2 for the entry titled Happy Oh No. A Happy Oh No. Okay. All right, first place in our youngest category goes to Luke Ma for the entry titled Zinbai. Or Shinbai the Y Boy. So we get our prizes out in the rotunda, but make sure to take your parents or your adults that came with you today. All right, let's hear for all of our winners today. I like that Luke kept me on my talking points. Okay, so we're gonna congratulate all the artists today who entered the comic contest. Your hard work and dedication are truly impressive, and I hope you continue to create amazing work throughout the year. Before we wrap up, we have a couple of announcements. On your way out to the rotunda, make sure you pick up a copy of the 2024 graphic novel making contest winning entries booklet. This will be at the welcome table. And the contest participants, don't forget to pick up your participation prizes before you leave today. And then second, for all of our guest speakers will be available for book and art print signings in the lobby shortly. Books by Eddie and Sara are available for purchase at the Elusive Comments table. Located in the rotunda. Concept art prints by Becky and Lucie are free and available at the guest speaker table. So thank you again to everyone for attending, for our sponsors, our judges, and all of our special guests. Let's hear it for Eddie On, Lucie Roberts, Becky MacDonald, and Sara Alfageeh. So a big thank you to all the volunteers and library staff. And finally, for all the winners and the guest speakers, we're going to take one big picture up here at the end. And congratulations again to everyone for winning a prize today. Thank you. We'll see you next year.